Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope everybody's doing great today. So we're gonna turn up one of these pumpkin pie blanks. They look pretty good. So let me go grab the blanks. I actually forgot to bring them over so you can check them out. I don't know if I have been so behind in the shop. Social media has gone out the window. Here we go. I don't think I did a demolding on these. So anyway, they turned out pretty good. We got some orange in there. We got a little bit of pie crust looking kind of a tan gold. And of course we got some white swirls. Now, there's a million ways I could have poured these. And I kind of talked about that. You know, you could try to go for kind of like a blobby kind of thing. I went for, you know, swirling it up. I like the swirly blanks usually. But you can do things a little bit differently, depending on how you pour things. You don't have to always do, you know, one color after another and try and swirl it up. You know, you could pour half, you know, the orange in or whatever. It doesn't have to be perfectly half or anything. But you can pour a bunch of like orange in and then, you know, like kind of try and layer them. What I found, it's pretty difficult to just layer colors on top of each other without having some sort of dripping together. And another thing that can mess that up a little bit is especially the white. White dye is heavy. So not white mica powder typically, but the white dye, you know, whether you're using Alumilite, realistically, I don't care what brand it is at all. White dyes are extremely heavy. So if you pour that on top, typically the white's going to kind of fall through unless you like are just pouring the white when it's just like blobbing out, which you don't really want to do. So, you know, you might want to do that first and then layer the other way. But even within like mica powders, I still find that it's liquid, right? You're pouring liquid on top of each other and it just, you can't get it to be perfect. So there's always going to be some infiltration of colors usually and all that stuff. So I usually just go for swirls because it just makes things a little easier. But you can kind of go like even in between. You can kind of pour larger blobs of color knowing that it's going to kind of swirl up and even swirl it together, but you might get bigger chunks. So there's lots of different ways I could have done this. But we'll have to see how these turn out. So let's go to the overhead view real quick here. So as you can see, I decided to go with the Zen. It took me, I sat there and stared at kits for like 30 minutes. And one of my things was, I looked at the copper because somebody recommended maybe a copper element. And I just think it would have been clashy with the, like it just kind of would have, basically, my decision not to go with an element copper was more, oh, that's a junior. I was going to pull out a copper one just so you guys can kind of see it next to it. My thing was, I just felt like the copper would have been better with another color. I think it would have, like going with a different color combination on the blank, I think would have accentuated the copper better. I just, I don't know. It was just my eye. I was kind of looking at the colors and the copper kind of is like a different shade of orangish red. And I just felt like it would just get kind of dissolved into the blank. So I wanted to use the copper for something else. Like I'm thinking, you know, go for like a blue or a green or, I mean, even like a black or something that's like a more of a contrast with the copper, I felt would have been a better way to use it. I'm not saying that it wouldn't look good, you know, like I'm not saying it was like, oh, it's not going to look good. I just felt like instead of using this kit for this one, I think that going with a different blank would have been a better choice to use the copper with. That was my, in my brain. I even looked at, I had some, the other thought that I had was maybe go with, I have a antique brass Zen. And so I kind of looked at that as well. And I think that could have been pretty good. I think that would have gone fairly well with it. But again, my problem was that kind of looks like, sort of like the pie crust gold. Darker, kind of, but I felt like that would maybe kind of screw that up a little bit, because one of the problems I have with this blank is the colors are all kind of similar. They're all very light. There's not really much of a contrast in this. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm done looking at these things. I'm just going to go with the white because it's more of a contrast with everything. So it's not white. It's like, I don't know. Technically it says satin silver, but it looks kind of whitish to me. Lighter. So I don't know. That's why I went with that. Like I said, the colors in the blank make it a little bit more difficult, and especially what we're going for. Made that, yeah, like I'm not joking. I was staring at kits for like 15 to 20 minutes or something like that. So anyway, that's what I decided to go with. Plus, I really like Zens. I like that it's a roller ball, and I like that you can just pop the cap off real quick and just, it's so simple. There's not even a twist, right? So yeah, no, and like I said, Vinny, I think it would have gone well. I mean, I don't think it would have been bad at all. I think it was a good idea. I just think it would have all just kind of blended together a little bit more, which even the white, like, you know, but with the white, it's what I was worried about with the copper and with the antique brass and maybe like black. I even looked at that. I was like, well, black, okay, that'll just be like different. But that doesn't really go with pumpkin pie in any way. Silver, maybe you could call that like the pie tin or something. I don't know. But and this is more, I feel like this satin silver is like a little bit more in like the white territory. But I figured if I'm going to wash out one of the colors in this blank, I'd rather, like, who cares about the white? I mean, it's whipped cream or, you know, whatever. But it's really kind of like the least of my I care about it colors. Like I was saying, the copper I felt might have kind of just, what I was worried about is that you're looking at it and you see the copper and you kind of know that that's like a copper color. It's easy because it's metal and it's copper, obviously. What I was worried about is that it would actually kind of alter the look of the orange and like perceptive, you know, for your perception, it kind of like changes the look of the orange. And then the same thing with that bronze. It was not the same color as like the gold. But that gold, it's like a gold mix. And what I was worried about was that that's going to look like gold, and it's going to make the what we're trying to make pie crust look not like pie crust at all, like make it not work. So anyway, I don't know. Who knows? Yeah, the silver, the pie server. That's a good one. So I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna try this out and see how it goes. That's all I got to say. So it looks like Turner's is doing some stuff in the shop, so they're not going to be here. But it looks like they did get my ornament, so I'm very excited about that. That thing was pretty fun to make. I really wish I had more time to make more stuff, but I'm pretty much out of time at this point. So this year was kind of bleh I just, not that I didn't like it. It's just time-wise, I didn't have enough time to really devote to the ornament challenge like I usually do. Usually I do a few ornaments. So things are just crazy. That I'm not joking. The resin issue, like, it jacked me up, because at the same time I also started discounting and trying to like get rid of the inventory of the square blanks, but I'm having trouble getting the team color. Like, I thought that I was ready to start just mass producing blanks. Things were all lined up, and then I kind of ran into this wall like literally a week after I decided to start just liquidating all the old blanks and trying to get the new ones in, and now I'm just like way behind. But the good news is I have updated. If you're looking for different team color blanks, there's quite a few that are still out of inventory, out of stock. However, I've got blanks sitting over there. I'm still, the other issue that I ran into, or it's not an issue, it's actually good. I actually kind of figured out a better way to pour these blanks and get a little bit less bleed. That, like I said, the dyes tend to want to bleed, especially certain colors. Just, they don't really bleed. They just don't look good next to each other. So I'm trying to get the best looking blanks, and that's setting me back a little bit more. That's why some of those are still out of stock. I'm trying to get them dialed perfect. So anyway, if you're looking for a certain team, you can shoot me an email and ask about it. Some of them are a little bit further away from getting into inventory, but there's quite a few of them that are like ready to go in like this week. So anyway, just a little update. I don't think I have any other like updates. The other thing that I'm going to need to do, because of all the different schedules, I was out of town for a little bit, and like things got kind of screwed up with the pen blank club. I'm like a week behind. Like I need to offset these things. So depending on when we get done today, I'm debating pouring more blanks for the pen blank club today too. We'll have to see about that. It just kind of depends on the time. Like I said, there's so many things all going on at once, and it's getting crazy in the shop. So with all that said, let's scroll to the top and see, Mike McEwen was here first, and Mark's here, Vinny, and Bruce is here. Harold's here. Nice. And Joseph. And let's see, scrolling. Mike Doyle's here. And I hope I didn't miss anyone. Emil is here. And pie crust if I was the one baking the pie. No doubt. Oh, man. Sorry, I was David Bingham's here. And I think that's it. If I missed you, I apologize. But we're going to head over to the lathe now. We're going to start doing... That's not the right camera. Start doing some turning. So for the Zen kits, I don't actually have the bushings like that are specific for the Zen. So what I'm actually using, and they're pretty close, they might be a little bit thin. So there's, in the junior gent line, there is like the junior like 2, I don't know. Is that the right one? 10, hold on a minute. Junior 2. Oh yeah, okay. So in the junior line, yeah, so the normal, okay, yeah. So in the junior line, you can use the larger small one. So there's 2 big ones for the cap, and then there's 2 smaller ones for the body. I'm lucky, I have actually 2 sets of the junior bushings. And so what I'm using for this, and it's pretty close, I think I calipered the components, the parts, and they're at like 13 millimeters, and these bushings are like 12.8. So I don't know what the actual bushings are, but these are pretty close, and I'm just gonna maybe leave it just like a hair proud or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to kind excuse me, kind of see. I think if I'm if I'm pretty even with the bushings, it'll probably work out. I'm going to actually pull out. First, I'm going to need a drink. I'm going to pull out the, yeah. So we're going back over to the other camera here. So overhead. So like looking at the parts that need to match up, they're not round. They are pretty squared over, but I'm just looking, like a lot of the Sierras kind of have like a bump, and I don't even think that you're supposed to, they're not even intended to match up perfectly. I don't think. So if you're a little under, that's not a big deal. In this case, I think I want it pretty close. So I think I will actually pull the calipers out and try to hit the ends at like about 12.9 millimeters would be fine, but so I'm actually going to use calipers. In this case, you know, if you don't have the right bushings, but you got something that, so the whole thing with bushings is you got to find something that actually fits into the tube, right? I'm going to switch back over to the other camera. That's the main thing. I mean, obviously, if it doesn't fit into the brass tube, then the bushings are useless completely. But then you also have that outer diameter that you have to look at. So if you're going to do this where you just find something that actually fits in the tube, but it's the wrong size, you want it to be smaller, if anything. You don't want it bigger because then you're not going to be able to turn it down really. So this will work fine. They're a little bit under, so I'm just going to have to kind of, it's a little bit, bushings make life a lot easier, I'll tell you that. But a lot of times you can find something that fits into the tube that's not the right bushing, but it's a little smaller, and you'll be okay with a little bit of caliper work. All right, so we got our dust collector set up. I got my phone open so I can see, and I'm gonna crack that other vent so it's not super loud. Turn the dust collector on and turn on the lathe. Here we go. Hey, Darren's here too. Ah, you're right on time. Oh, and Calvin. People are just popping in left and right. Very fun, very fun. Welcome to the stream. All right, can you guys see what's going on? That's the other question. Trying to get you guys in here. I'm gonna turn the light down a little bit. I'm gonna look at my other screen, see what's being outputted. It looks pretty good, I think. I'm very excited to see what this thing looks like on the inside. And I'm also interested to see how the orange turns out. Like once we polish it, like what is the actual shade of the orange? Because in a perfect world, you don't have to do any messing around. You've got your mica powder and it's like the color that you want. But like I was saying, when we cast these, you know, whether it be with dyes, a lot of times I would typically, well, I guess it doesn't really matter, but a lot of times I would actually use the Alumilite, the transparent dyes. Those can alter the color of your micas. And it's not thickening or anything, it's just a thin, transparent color that you can play with. Those are pretty concentrated colors though, so you gotta be a little bit careful with those, how much you add. Because it can make kind of you add too much and it can dramatically change the mica powder. Some of them anyway. But if it's like maybe too orange, if I wanted it a little bit more kind of like a burnt orange, you know, you could go in and add different ways to adjust your micas. It may make them look a little bit different, especially if you're using like two different types of micas, but you know, it's all, if you're trying to match up colors or adjust them, simple ways to do things. You can add white to lighten things, you can add black to darken things, but in between there you can also kind of do some different stuff. Like brown might not be a bad way to go to make it a little bit more like a burnt orange, but again, you got to be kind of careful. And the problem with doing that kind of stuff, then you get into the realm of, you guys know that I'm pretty anal about measuring things. You really need to know how many, you know, what is the ratio? Like, is it 10 to 1? And you got to be pretty, if you want repeatable results, you have to be pretty accurate with that stuff. So that can make things a little bit more difficult. I gotta remember to keep a little extra. The ends. I'm going to actually just pull out the caliper. I'm pretty sure I'm way off right now, but you never know. It's always good to check. And I'm just using a plastic set of calipers. I got my metal one set for a specific number right now, and I don't really want to change that, but even the plastic ones, honestly, calipers, I'm pretty sure you can pretty much get the cheapest calipers out there, and they're gonna do just fine for this type of stuff. You don't need to spend a lot of money on calipers. If you were doing machining, actual metal machining, then you might want to get something a little bit more expensive, because that's where accuracy really matters. But I think for the most part, for doing pen turning, as Jim Hines has said, we're not building rockets here. This isn't like rocket science. Hey, Barb's here too. I think. Let's see, where's Barb? There's Barb. Nice. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, very, very small. And that's the tough thing. If you're just barely trying to adjust this stuff, that's why it's really tough. And that's why I really want to hammer home the fact that the Alumilite dyes are very concentrated. Like, I would literally add, and this is where things get really tough, for that kind of an adjustment. I mean, you'd literally be talking like a pinprick of Alumilite brown dye, and like, you can't, you know, how repeatable is that? Not repeatable very much at all. So, looks like I'm at about 14 millimeters right now, so it's crazy. It's barely over the, you know, by finger, doesn't feel like it's very, as much, it's very proud of the bushing, but so I'm very close. It's not going to take much to get down a millimeter or so. What I'd like to do is probably get to about 12.5 millimeters. Like I said, I measured the components and they're at like 13. I think I'd like to be just a hair under that. I don't want it to be proud. If you're going to be off, having the blanks stick over the pen kit is not the way you want to go. So if I can just sneak up and be like, you know, 0.2 millimeters under, that would actually be absolutely perfect. That may be easier said than done, but we'll give it a shot. Alright, let's give it a measure. SAE metric. A metric iota. Alright, and this is, you know, it's hard to get, especially if it's not like a dead perfect angle or whatever. I'm trying to get like the very end. Looks like I'm at about 13.7. So it's can be kind of difficult to measure this stuff. 13.9-ish. Feels like I'm barely over though. I'm going to measure the rest of this thing just to kind of see where I'm at. Well, the only problem is this thing gets a little bit wonky, and I got to re-zero it. That's pretty good. Okay, so where are we at on the end here again? Pretty close on that other end. A little bit further on this one. Problem is I may be registering some of the a little bit more further up on the blank, so I have to be a little bit careful here. And we can always fine tune with sandpaper. Oh, there's reset again. I would probably recommend getting a more expensive set of calipers than these things, but they kind of work. Like 13.3 it says, so I'm gonna double check. Yeah, it's still 12.8. 12.9. I don't know, the bushings are pretty close, I actually think. Body was starting to get a little bit fat here. Also looking at the shaping overall. I think I want that down just a bit. And we'll just do a little bit of this. A little bit of that. Okay. Stupid thing keeps resetting on me. Okay. And you want to make sure that you're looking at, where's the other side of this thing contacting. Sometimes it can be pretty tough. I'm not gonna lie. That one's pretty good. little bit proud. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. So, it's time for everybody's favorite, the Lathe Buddy, Lathe Pal. Did you guys see that? Chad's idea? Lathe Chief. I actually thought it was funny that he mentioned the Dane Cook thing, because Gretchen and I always joke about that. For anybody that doesn't know, Dane Cook's a comedian. From like I don't know when that was, I guess the 2000, early 2000s era. And he's got this thing, it's pretty funny. If you know, you know. All right, so what do you guys think of this thing? Let's get you guys in and you can take a peek at it. It's looking pretty good, actually. I was a little worried. I thought I might have poured a little early on this one. And I still think I might have poured just a tad early, possibly. I don't know. But we do have some pretty good. We got some good white in there. We got some tan. We definitely have some orange. So to me, you know, like I said, you could play around with trying to stack things and do this and that and blob it and don't, you know, swirl it. In the end, it just, a lot of times, no matter what you're trying to do, you could do it a million ways, and not thinking about it or worrying or having some grand plan sometimes just works out anyway. You know? And sometimes you have a grand plan and it doesn't work out. I would say that might be sometimes more often. All right, so I'm going to get some fresh sandpaper out because I don't have any. We're going to start with 600 grit with the silicon carbide, and then go to the zonas, and then we're going to go to the magic juice. So let me spin this guy around. Not bad looking. Not bad at all. Again, I'm interested to see, I definitely liked that, and it was just happenstance. I didn't like scour Eye Candy's website trying to find like the perfect pumpkin pie color. I just had that in the shop, and I looked at it and I'm like, it's kind of like it's definitely not like a, you know, bright orange. I don't feel. I know it is kind of, but like if you compare this to like, there's, I'm going to show you a couple because I had a couple on hand, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, the finished result, I don't have these like, you know, cast and polished or anything, but it's kind of crazy when you look at slight differences. We're going to go to the overhead at the casting area. So this is the one that we use, Shibuya. I'm going to put that down for a second. So this was the other one that I had from Eye Candy, another random one, rainbow orange. And you can definitely see, like, there's a difference. All right, so this is the Shibuya, and it's a little bit like a browner, burnter, where this is like brighter, I feel. I don't know how to explain that. Like, this is more kind of almost more yellow, brown. So I had those two, and then I also have the tangerine, which the tangerine is close, actually, but I felt like this one was a little bit like darker. This one's a little bit just kind of lighter. So it's kind of interesting. Now, you know, looking in the can of mica powders, that's not necessarily telling you what it's going to look like when you cast it and do all that stuff. But like I said, it was I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that. That one I think will work. But you can alter it. Like I said, in this case, trying to like slightly adjust a mica powder, like very slightly, just kind of darken it a little bit. I don't think that for this I would pull out dyes. I think you'd have to, the only way to do it is you'd have to mix up so much resin that a pinprick or, like you have to, it would have to be a gigantic batch, like a 5-gallon bucket to add like a drop, and then a bunch of mica powder. So I think that you'd be better off trying to like very slightly adjust something like this with other micas. You could even maybe use like a bronze even or something. Anything that's kind of dark. I mean, even literally black would work. All right, so we'll get this thing going here, spinning it about 800 RPMs. I usually like to stay below 1,000 typically. I don't think it matters that much. I mean, really, you can go faster. And I don't think it's gonna significantly alter anything. The big thing is the heat. So, heat, whether you're sanding or doing whatever, resin doesn't, get out of my face. I'm really looking at that, what is that thing called, the mullet? I like that mullet thing, because this thing is not particularly adjustable, not very easy. I wonder if there's like micro adjustments. So I'll probably be looking at that thing up close and personal when I'm down. We should probably be down in Arizona early next year. We'll probably have an open house or something. I might give that a look. But anyway, yeah, so I think I would probably go with mica powders just to adjust. That's easier to pre-mix. You could do like I said, you could go, now you may need to get, a bigger bucket of orange than I have, but you could do like even 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 50 to 1. You could get these really high ratios, pre-mix it together, and then try it out. Now the problem is you have to think about it, because you'd probably have to do tests, pour a batch, and then you'll welcome to my world. Like, it takes forever to do this kind of testing and all that stuff, but if you really wanted to dial something in, you can do it. Now, after all that, I may have just brought this down to these bushings and whatever, but that's okay. It'll probably be pretty good still. Worst case scenario, if you're a little under on a blank, if you've gone below what you should have, you could build it back up with CA glue. Get it a little bit thicker, you have to take it apart and all that stuff, but add a CA finish on top and just keep building layers and then kind of sand that back. And you can get, something that you went under on, you can get it back up. I would recommend, if you are going to add, because people ask me, here and there, especially with those square blanks that I used to make with the teen color blanks, they were made with Alumilite white, and that stuff is really soft. I mean, not super, super soft, but compared to Alumilite clear, clear or clear slow, the Shore number is 72 for the white, where most resins are somewhere around 80, sometimes above that even, and that's like a hardness scale. So, it's low. They worked fine. They turned really good. Very easy to turn. That was one of the benefits of those things. But polishing soft things is more difficult. There's also some other factors that can kind of go into that. But if it is just that, if you're looking at one thing, if you got a softer material, it's going to be harder to get a good polish on. And so a lot of people would ask, can I put a CA finish on? And there's nothing wrong with putting a CA finish on resin. It's not really necessary typically, but the CA finish would definitely gloss that up. It will make it a little bit more glossy on something that's softer. And then you can polish that harder material, right? But if you're going to do that, you don't want to polish the blank up to the nth degree and then try to put a CA finish on, because you probably have bonding issues. Eventually it may kind of peel off. So you probably want to go to maybe 1,000, leave something for that CA finish to kind of bite into. a little bit. I'd say probably like, I'd probably just sand up to about 1,000 grit, be done with it. Probably even do like 600 grit, because the CA is going to fill in those little sanding marks, and they're typically going to be gone. You're not going to see those because the CA will fill it. Jennifer's here. You're not late. You're all right. No worries, no worries. You can always go back and see the beginning if you want to do that. Anytime you show up is the right time. All right, so now we're using the Zona green. I kind of equate that to about a 800 grit or so. I don't know. They say it's 600. It's definitely, just because of the way that it works, it's a little bit less aggressive than, you know, the silicon carbide 600 grit that I started with. I've been finding doing on the top is not too bad. Now, somebody mentioned that they do, like, they put it in reverse. And that is a trick that you would use for woodworking, but the reason you would do that had to do with grain. The grain on wood lays a certain, you know, it goes a certain direction. And so if you're sanding with the grain, it just tends to lay down and it'll get smoother quick. But if you reverse that and you start sanding against the grain, you can get a little bit finer sanding going on. Like it's doing a different thing. Now with solid material, I don't know that direction changing, I don't know. It may be sanding a little bit differently, but it's not, you don't have that. That was why people would do it with wood. There was like a very specific reason to do it with wood. I'm not sure that you get the same type of benefit out of it, but for some reason I do feel like just kind of changing the pressure does seem to kind of help a little bit. I don't know. We need to have some scientists do some studies on sanding. Some like real scientists. Now we're using the gray. I don't know what grit level this is, but somewhere between the green and Magic Juice #1. So it works. You could even go up to like the blue. I think much beyond that, if you're, you know, using the Zona papers and then going to Magic Juice, I don't know that you're getting a whole lot of benefit. I think you're just kind of wasting time sanding. And of course, you can just go all the way through the Zona papers. I tend to agree. If you guys watch the Turner's channel, Chad usually does that, and then he hits it with the ring bling at the end, which I think is a good thing. If you're going to do if you're just going to use the Zona papers, I definitely think that ring bling, it adds a little bit to the end. And it also kind of cleans it. It might have some anti-static properties to it as well. So that's a nice final touch if you're just going to go sanding. And there's no difference between, you know, no matter which method you use, all you're doing is abrading it finer and finer. So whichever one works for you is the one to use. You know, they all are doing the same thing. But typically people find that one or, you know, you may just seem to get better results doing one, you know, buffing or, you know, just the Zona paper or the Magic Juice. Whichever one seems to give you the best results, that's the one you should use. And if you're getting good results, there's no reason to change. Unless you're curious. The nice thing about Zona paper, if you've never used it, is it's pretty cheap. You get a full pack and you can try it out for a while, and it lasts a good amount of time. And it's a cheap option. Same thing with Magic Juice. They even have, Turner's has like a little sample kit that will last a good amount of time, but it'll let you try it out and it's simple to try out. There's not like this, you know, fundamental change in the way you're doing anything. Buffing is a little bit harder to just be like, oh, I'm just going to try that out, because it can get kind of expensive. I mean, you're looking at like probably over $100 minimum to get a buffing wheel set up. So that one's a little tougher. It does have some advantages though, sometimes, over the liquidy things. But they all, like I said, they all work. So whichever one you've got access to and works and all that good stuff, that's the one to go for. All right, so we're gonna pull out, I like using I need to get some more of it. I like using the blue Scott towels. For steps 1 through 4. 1 through 3 maybe even might be a better way to go. I don't know. Again, science. I haven't scienced any of this stuff, but the paper towel can be abrasive. And so, you know, technically your best bet is to use like a microfiber, but that adds a level of possible danger if it gets wrapped up on the lathe while you're using it. So I like these paper towels. I think that my guess is that somewhere 1 through 3 Magic Juice, maybe the paper towel is not as abrasive as those, or, you know, somewhere around there. 4, I don't know. And then 5 and 6, I think that there's a much higher chance that the paper towel is more abrasive than those two for sure. So I usually just do these. Now, Chad mentioned an interesting thing. He said, you know, if you just wipe a paper towel on a blank that's spinning dry, that is definitely going to leave some scratches. So if you've plastered it with a polish first, that may change things. Like, it's not as abrasive once that polish hits it. I don't know. Again, I would love somebody to science this. So, taking that into account, I've kind of switched where I used to wipe off with the paper towel, but now, once I'm kind of done, pull out a different rag without the lathe spinning, wipe it off, and hopefully we'll minimize extra scratches that we don't want in there. I don't know. Truly don't know the answer to this, but yeah, always be cautious, definitely. And you know, you have to make the decision on what level of risk you're okay with in your shop, you know. 9 times out of 10, the microfiber probably isn't going to get wrapped up, you know. Do you want to gamble? What odds do you want to gamble with? And that's up to you, you know. I'm okay with, you'll see it, you know, once we get to, I think I might even do 4, 5, and 6. Once I get to 4, I'm going to switch. I have these little microfiber like wipe things that are disposable. So it's not a giant towel. Like, I definitely would not recommend pulling a towel out, turning the lathe on, and just, you know, doing it that way. That is dangerous. Like, everybody should realize that's dangerous. But if you cut, you know, if you had smaller bits, and that's where I start to get into, okay, it's not that big of a deal to me. I feel like it's okay. But I have these little squares, and I cut this in half. And so it would be like you know, by the time I'm done, I'm using about a quarter size, like a square this big. And like, really, I mean, I think that it's probably not going to grab your hand and pull it in at that point. Those are where my odds start going, okay. But this material, this stuff, is not going to rip. That's the thing, is the paper towels, even if it did get caught up, it's going to rip. And even these gloves, you don't want to be wearing gloves, especially with like fingers. You see people that are wearing gloves that are fingerless, turning bowls and stuff because like the chips are flying and smacking them. But they're not sticking their gloves near any moving object, right? But with these nitrile gloves, I don't care. If it catches or does anything, it's just going to rip off my hand. There's not going to be any, no maiming is going to happen from nitrile gloves. But you don't want to use materials that don't rip near the lathe. So I'm going over here to just cut these little guys in half real quick, just to get ready since we stopped. So like I said, all these things, it's up to you in your shop. Any woodworking tool, any power tool has some level of risk. So we're all making some decision at some point, like, is this safe in my head? But then, like I said, there's certain things that I would highly caution against doing to everybody, but other things, you're like, well, the risk seems acceptable to me or not. And I got my lathe going about 1,500 or so. It seems to be a pretty good number. And I'm not pressing hard or anything like that. I'm just letting the polish do its work. And usually you can kind of feel it'll kind of get to the point where it I don't know, it changes somehow. And that's when I quit. I'm such in the habit of just flipping that paper towel over and wiping, letting it take it off. But now I'm trying to get in the habit of using this thing to wipe off each grit as I go. So like I said, now I'm going to switch over. And again, I have no clue what the deal is with paper towels, where it starts being problematic and leaving scratches more than your polish. But I'm going to switch at 4 here. I like to kind of rub it in a little bit. And then we'll go here. But again, I'm very cognizant of, like, if this catches, I'm getting my hand out of here. I don't want my hand anywhere near that. Luckily for pens, it's a little bit less likely to get some major crazy catch. Like if you got a giant chuck with, like, the the claw jaws hanging out of there and all that stuff, I mean, you're just asking for trouble if you've got something that can catch on it. It'll grab it and rip it. We got a pen here, but this stuff does the polish tends to, like, get sticky. And so, I've wrapped up a ton of paper towels before, so it definitely does happen. Even with that, I've never even ripped a paper towel before. So that's another reason why this kind of falls into the, okay, I'm all right with it category. Because it's never even, like, grabbed my finger. It just kind of pulls the thing out of my hand and flaps around. And that was using, a little bit longer piece of paper towel. So, like I said, it's up to you how you feel about the safety issues with these things, but just be careful no matter what you do. There's the more you know for today. Yeah, I don't know what grit level paper towels are. At some point, like, I'd like, this is something that I could do. I just, like I said, I am so behind on stuff. I'd like to just kind of do an experiment sometime and get some different grits and pull out the super high magnifiers, maybe even pull out like a jeweler's loop. I don't know if I have one of those actually, but I want to get one of those. It's a good thing to have if you're doing nib fixing for the fountain pens. But, you know, and actually like scratch up and like try to see if I can compare, like do it next to each other. Like, oh, here's 1,000 grit. Here's me just wiping with a paper towel. And like, here's like, you know, I don't know, step 1 of magic juice, and try to kind of see like, can I compare those scratches? Be kind of an interesting thing to do. Tough thing is I don't know that I would really be able to like share that. I don't have like a microscope video thing. But it would be, I'm gonna actually flip this over. That was kind of, if you notice that your magic juice is kind of dry or sticky, particularly sticky, you can add a little bit of water. I would recommend using distilled water. And you can kind of bring it back to life. It's not, it doesn't have like a shelf life. It's not going to go bad. I've actually tossed out some magic juice in the past, but then I talked to Michael, the Stadium Pen Blanks, and he's like, yeah, just add some water to it and it'll be good. It's all water-based stuff. So you can revive it a little bit if it's a little dry or sticky. I mean, even sometimes when you get it, one of them might be a little bit on the drier side. No reason to throw it away though. And we'll do a little bit of this number. And now we're on step 5. And I have linked down in the description. I set up one of those like Amazon page things, whatever, with a bunch of stuff. And these little wipey things, they call them a microfiber cleaning cloth. These things are linked in there. I got them on Amazon. If anybody wants to use them as well. All right, so we'll close step 5 here. I don't know. The one question I forgot to ask him is like, does shaking this stuff up do anything? I always shake them. I figure there's particles in there, so most things prefer being shaked. Seriously doubt it hurts it in any way, so I always err on the side of caution, but I don't know if it actually does anything either, though. Yeah, the giant burl things. Yeah, they can be a little sketchy. Yeah, and I used to use buffing wheels for all the pens. The trouble is, it's hard to hold them. That presents issues, and I got to be honest, I get better results. What's happening here? I found that I got better results doing it with this method, and I don't have to change anything. So that's what I was saying, but it depends on what, your thing, are you getting better results? Then you stick with what you're doing. I was blown away because I had been buffing for years, 10 years probably, and it worked perfect for me. I knew what I was doing with it, everything. And someone mentioned this magic juice stuff, and I'm like, okay. I mean, literally, that was my first response. Like, okay, I guess I'll try it. And I did it on the stream, and it was better results. And I was like, wow, okay. It was faster, easier, and they were glossier for sure. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll switch. But I still have my buffing wheels. Larger things and, certain things are a little bit easier to buff. You can touch up things a little bit easier than having to, you're also not dealing with like a liquid. So, there's things, with each one. But so let's get you guys in here. Reveal. But buffing works. I still, and for certain things, like I can get a little bit better. Like I can typically, takes a little bit longer, but I tend to get better. Like I can get things like black blanks. A lot of times I can get better, like all the scratches out buffing. But I would still, I was saying like even if you use the Zona papers all the way through, I still get a better sheen using like the number 6 or some sort of like a plastic polish at the end for like that super high, like a scratch remover type of, you know, stuff. That looks pretty good, guys. And I am happy with I think I did pretty good on the time. Pouring time and all that stuff. I think it looks good. Not bad. Could have maybe gone a little higher, like 100. I think I poured it like 95. I'm still finding that like there's something, the timing is a little, I'm just getting slightly different results with the clear slow. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like it's like thin, basically, is what the thing is. And maybe it's just like super fresh and that might change things, but man, that looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. All right, let's go and put it together. That timing of pouring the resin can get you. Get my pen press thing. I still want to get the Milescraft one, guys. I think I'm going to do it sometime. I still prefer, my favorite way to do it is vertically. It makes sense. Gravity's not fighting against you. The problem, you guys might laugh, but honestly the problem, because I used to do that. That's how I did it in all my videos, and I had a good setup. The problem is, I don't want to have to set up a separate camera just to do, because this overhead thing is not gonna, you're not gonna see anything. So then I'd have to bring another camera over, which I could do, but it just, you know. So I was like, oh, I'll just get one of these sideways ones. And it works pretty good most of the time, but I am curious about that Milescraft one. Seems like it's a pretty nice pen press. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, tight. Get this thing around there. This thing. Okay, so I'm just looking at this. Which way? Technically, the way I turned this was what I wanted for the front. So we're gonna do it that way, I think. There is a slight difference. The angle is a little bit longer, which is for the fingers. That's kind of how I was turning that thing. So I think we'll do it this way. Technically, there's like more orange back here, so it kind of almost makes more sense if you're going to call this more like kind of cream. But I don't like that. That's not. I didn't turn it that way, so. We're not going to do that. There we go. I do like the spring-loaded thing. In the past, I had used horizontal things where like you had to basically hold it in place, and that just is not fun. I will say that. This feels like it's going to be a little tight. This time I'm going to back off instead of trying to just ram this thing home if it's a little tight. I'm just going to sand the parts just a hair. Take some material off the actual components. Yeah, that's pretty tight already, I can tell. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to come in and just kind of sand off some of this stuff on the component itself. I'm going to grab some like 180, 220 grit, 220 maybe. If I can find some of that. Got 400. Actually, I think I am going to go with 180. I'll just be very careful. And I don't think it's on the inside because these bushings fit very, very tight. So I think that my tube is okay. But these components just have like a little extra on them. I'm just going to kind of sand this. I don't know if I'm on the camera or not. Sand a little bit off. I don't want to take too much off. But I'd rather glue components together than have it be super, super tight to the point where you can't even get it apart anymore. I don't know if Abernet is the greatest way to go because they're like sharp on the edges. I think regular sandpaper would have been a better way to go. So let's just see if that makes things slide a little bit easier here. Oh, man. There we go, okay. Just needed to get, it's still, you gotta watch out with these longer kits. They can be a little bit crazy sometimes. Looks like I did pretty good on the size. It's maybe a little bit under the component, but just like a hair, maybe. There's not even a lip. I can just tell the difference. So I think I did pretty good on that side. Let's try and get this guy in here. Hopefully this one won't be as crazy. I still haven't put, I still need to put some piece of leather or something on that other end. Never ending. I think let's see here. What do I got that I can put in there? I think I'm just gonna kind of double up some paper towel here. Just so it's not. Turn the cameras off and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Okay, just so it doesn't scratch that part. Okay, that one went better. There we go. Oh, dropped it. I like that, guys. I like it. Let's see here. So this guy goes down, dropping that in the bottom there. We got our generic ink, but it'll work. What do you guys think? I like it. And I love the Zens, I'm telling you. You can post it if you want, magnetic. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. It's pretty pumpkin pie-y. Aye. What do you guys think? Little bit on the orange side. You know, in a perfect world, I think I would just bring that orange down a tad. But again, it's gonna, you know, you got to decide, like, is all the work of trying to figure out the perfect color, testing, all this stuff worth messing around? Because that's pretty good. And it depends, you know, if you look at like pumpkin pie pictures, there's an alliteration. Some pumpkin pies are pretty orange. Like I would say it falls into like this realm. But then some of them are a little bit more kind of in the brown, you know, brown side. Just depends on how you make your pie, really, or what you use, I guess. Maybe how spicy it is. I don't know how you make pumpkin pie, aside from like pulling it out of a can and dumping it into the pie thing. But you know, so it just kind of depends. But that's not a bad one. Like if you just want an off the shelf, okay, that's pretty decent for like a pumpkin pie kind of, or something like that, or a pumpkin. This Shibuya. I'm just going to call it Booyah Orange. Let's put it on this overhead thingy. Shibuya. That's a pretty good one, I'd say. They might have others. Let's actually go and check out Eye Candy, because they're the ones that have like every single color under the planet. Eye Candy pigment. I don't, offhand, I don't know of, there's probably other, like some of the, like the car paint companies and all that stuff, which technically that's kind of what Eye Candy started as, or that's what, that is kind of what they do. But I'm going to try to see if I can have you guys share with me here. Yeah, we want the window capture. How do I do this? Mica pigment. There we go. I don't want to unlock anything. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so let's do some. Let's look here. You guys can see what I'm doing too. Pigment. We want orange. Actually, I'm going to do it this way just to make sure that we get what I'm trying to do here. So, pigments by color. Yeah, okay. So let's find the orange one. That way we get just mica powders. See, you know, like, I mean, look at how many they got here. And this looks like, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I thought I had fire orange too. Oh, okay. Oh, huh. Could have sworn that I had fire orange. I have a lot of them because I was looking at. I ordered quite a few a while ago. Oh, I do. So I have like almost all of these things, honestly. Let's see. Do I have? What's their other? Tiger orange is the one I think that Turner's carries. So I'm curious what fire. I don't know if I looked at fire orange. That might have been a pretty good option too. Where's the Shibuya? I would say Shibuya is a little bit more of that burnt orange. Oh, you guys can't really see what I'm doing. Let's do this view. So this is the Shibuya. This is the fire orange. I would say that the Shibuya is a little bit more that kind of burnt, more brown, where this is a little bit more, I don't know. It's not a bad choice either, but I think Shibuya is better. And then I have one called Khaki, K-A-K-I. That's definitely more like the redder version of orange, which we don't want. Same thing with the rainbow. It's a little bit brighter, kind of a little bit more on the red side. So we got a lot of these things already. Like we're sharing some serious colors here. What else do they have on their website? So let's go back to the browser window. So we got rainbows, probably not going to be the one. Kakiro. Tiger looks darker and more red to my eyes on the screen. The tough thing is judging by the screen is kind of tough. We looked at Shibuya, Fire, Khaki, and then there's this Rakugan. That's like pink almost looking. That's like red. So the only other one that could be a little bit, I don't know. The Kakiro looks a little bit more red again. I don't know if you guys are seeing that. I don't think that's the one either. So I think if you're going like pumpkin, I'm kind of guessing that this Shibuya is the best one to go with. So anyway, let's go back to the, I guess the intro. Yeah, not bad. And let's go over the casting. So again, I'm pretty happy with the pie crust look. I mean, it's like a light gold, but I think that's a pretty good color. I don't know. It's reminiscent to my eyes of like the color of pie crust. This is an area where, maybe one thing that might make this blank, if you're really going for pumpkin pie, you could maybe try to go with like a solid color for the pie crust, or add solid color so it's not as like variable with the pearliness going on, where it kind of shimmers and stuff. You can maybe kind of try to deaden it with a little bit of like a, tan colored pigment, like liquid pigment. That might slightly change it to where it's a little bit more pie crust looking. I don't know. I'm just sharing like little random thoughts, but I'm pretty happy with the orange. It could be just a tad bit, a little bit more in the brown for me, but it's pretty good. And then the white turned out pretty good. And I used Snow White for the white, plus a little bit of the white dye. And we used Shibuya for the orange. And then I used a kind of a special mixture for the tan color that I came up with. I'll let you know, it's in the gold variants basically. So that ought to probably tell most of you guys enough to figure out how to do that kind of thing. And they might even have something, actually going back to, this is something that I never did look at really. Let's see, I'm curious if they have like a light gold. Gold. You know, like a tan gold. They probably do. I would be really curious to look at some of the different gold flavors that eye candy has. Like get a sample pack of all of them, kind of play around and see what they look like. That would be pretty cool. But anyway, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with this thing. So these guys are going to be going into the Pen Blank Club. I'm going to say right now, I may experiment a little bit with trying to slightly adjust the orange in some of them, because we did one batch, but there's more than just 11 left of the pumpkin pie blanks that we first made. So I may kind of play around and do, try some different things with the orange and see if, so just saying, if you're in the Pen Blank Club, you may get this one, or you may get one that might be just a little bit more kind of burnt orange looking. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, pretty cool. Sweet potato. Yeah, it's a little bit more in like the sweet potato. You're right. But like I said, before I did the casting, and actually just let me go back. I want to look at, I'm going to go to my YouTube. Oh, it's probably going to start me talking. I want to look and see. Oh no, that's not the right one. So I have a picture. So if you look at the screenshot, or sorry, the thumbnail for last week's, that's more like brown, that pumpkin pie. It's definitely more in like the brown realm, more than orange. However, I did pull up just pictures, just Google search pumpkin pie. And there are definitely like pumpkin pies that look like they're just orange like this. As well, I would say maybe just a little bit more in the burnt. That's what I was saying, like a little bit more burnt orange, a little bit more brown in there, or whatever, darker, but not bad. I don't think that anybody would be like, oh, that's definitely not pumpkin pie. Yeah. I think that they'll be like, yeah, okay, I get it, for the most part. Orange cream, yeah, it could be that too. Oh yeah, matte finish. I never thought about that. It might even be a better way to go just in general for the pumpkin pie blanks. I didn't even think about doing that. Yeah, I don't like their pastes. I got to be honest, guys. They're messy. They're super thick, and they're super... what am I trying to say? The opposite of concentrated. They're weak. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk down, but for me, if I'm going to go with the liquid pigments, I'd much rather go with, I only have the few colors that I came out with, but if you're looking for liquid pigments, I would recommend going with the Divine pigments. They're just easier to work with. So much easier than dipping out it was not, I tried them out and I was like, nope, not doing that. Divine did that at first. They had like little jars. It wasn't as thick as that paste stuff, but man, I found, because I did experiments, I was looking for a yellow that was a little bit, I've had issues getting a yellow that's like opaque. So I was like, oh, this paste stuff looks really opaque. Well, then I did experiments, and I'm like, I couldn't believe my eyes when it was like less concentrated than like any of the other the ones that I'm using, Divine, and even I tried a bunch of other brands. And yellow just seems to be terrible. But what ends up happening is I think you're paying for there's not a lot of pigment in it. There's a lot of other, whatever the stuff that makes it thick. So you're paying for more junk basically, and it's harder to work with. So I don't particularly like that stuff myself. And you know me, guys, I don't like messy stuff, and that stuff is just messy. I'd rather have a shaky bottle and liquid kind of thing, personally. I hate messes. That's why I do resin casting. Doesn't make any sense. So anyway, let's see. Did I miss any? Oh, Brian's here too. He made it. Nice. Sandblasted. Oh, yeah. Mike was saying that the things might be. Sometimes the longer, if you're doing one of the longer blanks, they're harder to align and all that stuff. And sometimes it can just be a little bit wonky, but I don't know. I think there was a little extra material. It's got a really good plating. The Zen kits have a pretty good plating on them as well. So I don't know. It might have just been a little extra material. I did make sure to clean out the tube though, because actually one side was a little bit tight, even with the bushing. And what I find, and I don't know, call me crazy guys, but sometimes these tubes, I got a dry throat today. It's like they're bent or something. They're not like perfectly round. And sometimes like if you try to spin the bushing, it's like it's doing kind of weird stuff. So that might have been that end. It might have actually been the tube in this case. So let's see. Tim was asking what overhead. I've got a Sony, I don't know what the heck this is. Sony ZV-E2 something. What is the name of this thing? It's like sideways and upside down. So I need to look at it's that, what do they call that thing? Of course, it doesn't say anywhere. They call it it's like ZV-E2 or something like that. I bought it a while ago, and it just plain works. It's a really good camera, and it's kind of they marketed this camera to like creators, makers, whatever. Video people, YouTubers, content creators. And I will say that it does a very good job for that type of use. Let's see, I got the box. ZV-E10. That's what it is. And I think they've come out with newer versions and things, updated ones. So Sony ZV, Z is in zebra, V is in Vicky, E is in extra mile, extra hot sauce. ZV-E10. And I've been happy with it. I don't do much. I set it up and I just set it, forget it, and don't mess with it. But it does do a pretty good job for the most part. The only issue is sometimes like your background objects, like you're trying to get it to focus, and sometimes it just doesn't really want to. So you got to kind of do certain things with it. But overall, it does a pretty good job of focusing on things. I think it's also maybe got, I can't remember, but I think this camera's got like, you can turn on either like a face thing, and I got to be honest, I'm hoping that I turned on the right stuff, but I think you can change it from either like a product focused thing where you're like holding things up to it and it tends to want to focus on that, or face things. So I think there's actually like a setting where you can change that, where it's, if you're trying to focus on people's faces, it does that faster than like holding things up. But if you're, a content creator that is doing stuff like we're doing, where you're showing people stuff, I think, excuse me, my throat is so dry right now. I don't know. I think that this thing's got a setting for like products, but to be honest, there's even like webcams at this point. There's like newer webcams that for probably less than that thing cost, do very well also. So, you could look into that. Depends on what you're trying to do though. Let's see here. Paper towel having a grit size. You asked AI. Yeah, I don't know if I believe, especially with like a random weird thing. Like I don't doubt it though. I mean, really, it probably is fairly high. But, and here's the other thing with that question, it definitely depends, because I am 100% certain that the blue Scott towels are less abrasive than like the white. I have the, what are they, Bounty, I think. Those things, because, and this is non-scientific, scientific proof. Whenever I have like a cold or something, runny nose, I used to just use paper towels. You know, it's not like I have like a bunch of tissues in the shop or something like that. So I would use paper towels to blow my nose, and like within like half a day for sure, like less than that, like it depends on how often you're like wiping your nose. Those white paper towels, I would just be raw. So I started using the Scott, you know, the blue Scott shop towels, and they still do that eventually. If you got a cold, that's just going to happen because you're, you know, abrading your face basically. But those, I could go like a day or two before it starts like really just irritating, and you can even feel it. The white ones are harsher on your face. So that's my scientific, unscientific proof. So let's see here. I think that's about it, guys. New red paste, yeah. Yeah. It's a glass effect. Huh. The nose test is valid. It really is, I'm telling you. But yeah, there's other brands of you know, paste or whatever you want to call it. I just call them liquid pigments. That seems to be the best. But that's the thing, you know, and always kind of test things out, because some of them, you know, they're all made. I think pretty much all the liquid pigment things, they all use the same raw materials. I want to say. But they all do things differently. There's different amounts of pigment, which that's the biggest problem. I want to pay for something that's, you know, bang for buck. Like I want something that's got good amount of pigment in it, like the solids. That'll also help with your opacity with stuff. The more pigment that's in it, the more opaque it's going to get. Which, you know, just for instance, I mean, even just comparing, there's really two really good examples, and this, like anybody will see this. So this is the Alumilite white dye, all right, in this little bottle, and that stuff is less. This blew my mind, because the Alumilite's dyes, they're transparent ones, they are super concentrated, but obviously transparent, so it's a little bit different thing. But compared to, and oh shoot, do I even have one right now? Well, compared to Divine pigments, white, I mean, that stuff is like probably twice as concentrated. So you're going to get, for the same price, you know, for the same amount that you buy, like 2 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever, you're going to, the Divine is, and this is just white, the specifically the white one, it's going to go farther than Alumilite's white dye. So if you're going to go get a white dye, I would recommend getting Divine. For sure, because it's going to last longer. Now, on the other hand, Alumilite's black is very different than like anything else that I've tried. That's actually what's in this one. Their black is, and I'm not even joking. This stuff is probably 5 times more concentrated than Divine black. Okay, so these things come in different amounts, and they're all using like different things as well. Like the Alumilite probably uses a slightly different, well, I know they have to be using a slightly different, you know, whatever makes it liquid. It's some sort of a resin, typically, not like Alumilite resin, somewhat similar to that, but different. They can all use like different chemical resins. And so that can kind of change the properties of things. It's kind of crazy when you get into pigments. It's really nuts. The one thing that I will say though is if you want to mix colors, I would highly recommend stay within the brand line, mixing that, like pre-mixing them. You can dump in, you know, I can dump in some Alumilite black and some Divine and some eye candy all into the same mixing cup at the same time, plus some mica powders or whatever. You can do all that in a cup that you're just mixing and pouring. That doesn't matter. But if you're pre-mixing colors, if you're doing what I'm doing, trying to get like a very specific shade, tone, whatever, in that case, if you're pre-mixing it and sticking it on the shelf in a bottle, then stick with the same line. Because if you're mixing these different types of ingredients together, what I've found is they can foam sometimes. I've actually had things like foam up on me and like they're reacting with each other. So if you're pre-mixing like dye recipes and putting them in a bottle, definitely stick with the same line of resin or of dyes, pigments, whatever. So anyway, just a couple little tips. So it looks like we kind of ran out of time. So I'm probably for the Pen Blank Club going to have to do a little bit more mad sciencing on this month. I think what we're going to have to do is probably, I need to switch the weeks because like things are off with the Pen Blank Club. So I think what we're going to have to do is actually 2 weeks in a row, or maybe do 1 week we do 2 different blanks for the Pen Blank Club, so I can get that back on track where I'm making them early enough on the stream to get both of them done and out to you guys, because things got kind of messed up. I think what really kind of killed it was when I was gone for that week. So anyway, who knows? We'll figure it out. But don't worry, we'll have some pretty cool blanks for you guys in the Pen Blank Club. But I like doing them on the stream. You know, that's half the fun. And so the timing, the scheduling of when all this stuff is going on just got kind of messed up. Where I won't have enough time if we do one next week, basically, to get them made and then and shipped out. I don't think so. We'll have to see. Maybe what we'll do. Maybe what I'll do is I'll pre-make them and then we'll do them on the stream so you can see them being made. Maybe that I could fix it that way, but it still doesn't fix the problem of the timing issue. So I don't know. It just gets crazy. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys had a good time. And I hope you guys are looking forward to the pumpkin pie blanks. And so for people that are not, this is one where I don't like doing this usually, but this was a blank that I wanted to put in the Pen Blank Club. For sure. I thought it was a pretty cool idea, but it's also one that I want to have like a short run on my website. I don't do that very often, but this was one that was slated for that kind of thing. So sometimes it does happen. I'm not sure which version, because like I said, I may kind of play around with the colors or do some different stuff with them. But so if you're not in the Pen Blank Club, be looking in like the next week or two. I'll probably do, and it's going to be, the other thing is it's going to be a very short run. I'm probably only going to do like a batch or 2 of these pumpkin pie blanks that are going to be available on my website. It's just going to be kind of a limited one, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to open it up to other people as well this time. Like I said, it's not going to be a habit or anything like that for the Pen Blank Club folks, because you guys, that's the whole point. You get the exclusive ones. But this one will be a little bit different. And there will be some available if you guys are interested. So anyway, always good info. I'm glad we had this chat. It's true. So anyway, guys, again, thanks for joining the fun tonight. And yeah, make sure to get your ornaments done. We are at critical at this point. Like, you need to be sending that thing out on Monday pretty much to get your ornament in on time. So make sure to get that finished up, get those ornaments in, be looking for the auctions coming up, and it should be pretty fun. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the night.